Story 1. The Forbidden Basement, Blackwood High, was a sprawling building with towering stone walls and ivy-covered facades. The school's age was apparent in every creak of its wooden floors and every flicker of its dim lighting. Among students and staff, there was one ironclad rule: never enter the basement. The basement had been sealed decades ago after a series of disappearances that left the community shaken. Over time, curiosity brewed among the students, especially a group of 4 friends: Alex, the skeptic; Mia, the adventurer; Jake, the historian; and Sarah, the artist. Each of them had their reasons for wanting to uncover the truth. Alex wanted to debunk the myths. Mia sought the thrill. Jake had heard whispers of the headmaster's experiments and wanted to document them. Sarah felt drawn to the basement, as though something within it called to her. One rainy Friday night, when most day students had gone home, the 4 slipped into the darkened halls. Armed with flashlights and a crowbar, they found the basement door. Its rusty padlock gave way with a screech, and the friends descended into the unknown. The stairs were steep, and the air grew colder with each step. Their breath clouded before them as they reached the bottom, where the narrow staircase opened into a cavernous space. The basement was more expansive than they'd imagined. Dusty desks and chairs were piled haphazardly, and the faint smell of mildew hung in the air. On the walls were symbols none of them could recognize, drawn in a dark, flaking substance. Jake, fascinated, began sketching them in his notebook, while Sarah wandered, her flashlight flickering. In the farthest corner, Mia found a desk with a leather-bound journal. "Guys, come look at this," she called. The journal contained entries from the 1940s, written by the school's headmaster. He described experiments designed to enhance the mind, using students as test subjects. Each entry grew more unhinged, with mentions of strange rituals and the phrase, "They watch from the walls," repeated frequently. As the friends read, a low growl echoed through the room. They froze. Alex shone his flashlight toward the sound, revealing a shadow that slithered along the wall. The growl became louder, joined by whispers in a language none of them could understand. The shadows began to take shape, forming humanoid figures with glowing yellow eyes. Panic set in. The friends bolted for the stairs, but the shadows were faster. The door at the top slammed shut as they reached it, trapping them inside. Sarah, now in a trance, turned back toward the figures. "They need us," she murmured, walking toward the shadows. The others screamed for her to stop, but she disappeared into the darkness. The last thing they heard was her voice, calm and clear. "You'll join me soon." The students heard a noise coming from the basement, so they went with the police to open the door. When they opened the door, they found only a suspicious Alex and no sign of the friends. Story 2. The Phantom Bell Street, Eliza's academy. She had stood for over a century, its Gothic architecture a stark contrast to the modern buildings surrounding it. Among its many peculiarities was the legend of the Phantom Bell. Every October 13th at midnight, the school's bell, silenced for decades, would toll 13 times. The sound was said to summon a ghostly figure who wandered the grounds. Sophomore Emily had always dismissed the story as a myth, but when her best friend, Chris, dared her to spend the night in the school on October 13th, she reluctantly agreed. The two snuck into the school after hours, carrying sleeping bags, snacks, and a camcorder to document their adventure. As the night wore on, they laughed off the eerie atmosphere. But as the clock struck 12, the laughter stopped. The bell began to toll, each chime resonating through the empty halls. Chris grabbed the camcorder, recording as they followed the sound to the bell tower. The heavy door, locked for years, was now slightly ajar. Inside, the staircase spiraled upward, lit only by their flashlights. The air grew colder as they climbed, and Emily's unease deepened. At the top, they found the bell, swaying gently despite the absence of wind. Beside it stood a ghostly figure in a tattered school uniform. Her face was obscured by long, dark hair, and her hands clutched a broken locket. "Who are you?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. The figure turned, revealing hollow eyes that seemed to pierce her soul. "I'm looking for my brother," the ghost said, her voice echoing. "He was here. He heard the bell." Before Emily could respond, the ghost lunged at Chris, who screamed and dropped the camcorder. The device tumbled down the stairs, its recording light still blinking. Emily grabbed Chris and fled, the ghost's wails chasing them down the stairs and out of the tower. The next day, the camcorder was found on the front steps, its footage showing the bell tolling and the ghost's chilling presence. Emily and Chris never spoke of the incident again, but every October 13th, they avoided the school at all costs. Story 3. The Substitute's Curse. Riverbend Middle School had a reputation for being unremarkable, a place where nothing extraordinary ever happened. That changed when Ms. Ilara arrived. She was a substitute teacher for the 7th grade math class, filling in for the ailing Mrs. Harper. Ms. Ilara was unlike any teacher the students had met. Her piercing green eyes seemed to see through people, and her lessons often included strange symbols and riddles. Jamie, a curious and precocious student, couldn't help but be intrigued. One afternoon, he stayed behind after class to ask Ms. Ilara about her methods. She smiled, her expression enigmatic. "Would you like to see something truly special, Jamie?" she asked. He hesitated but nodded. Ms. Ilara closed the classroom door and began to draw a complex symbol on the chalkboard. As she finished, the room shifted. The walls seemed to melt away, revealing a vast, otherworldly landscape. The air shimmered with strange colors, and whispers filled the space. "What is this?" Jamie asked, his voice trembling. "Knowledge," Ms. Ilara replied, "but it comes with a price." As she spoke, shadowy figures emerged from the swirling colors, their forms indistinct but menacing. Jamie felt a tug at his mind, as though something were trying to pull him into the void. He screamed and shut his eyes. When he opened them, he was back in the classroom. Ms. Ilara was gone, replaced by Mrs. Harper, who seemed to have no memory of her absence. Jamie's friends noticed he had changed. He became withdrawn, often staring off into space. Sometimes he'd mutter about the price of knowing. Despite the school's efforts, Ms. Ilara's name was never found in any records. And though Jamie never spoke of what he saw, he knew that the shadows were still watching, waiting for their payment.